let's not join the culture club on this episode of Pushback.
Go, 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 Jonny, go, 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 Jonny, go, 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 Jonny, go, go.
If you're concerned about the direction our culture is heading, then maybe it's time to push back.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Season 6 of Pushback. I'm Dr. Jonny, and yes, there's been 5 full years of Pushback content that I've been able to share with you, and I've been so delighted and so appreciative of your willingness to listen and to tune in. And we're looking to have this thing continue to grow and expand. So stay tuned for maybe some changes down the road that's going to help with production and awareness and advertising and things that I've never really done before. But I'm learning and connecting and hooking my trailer to people who do know, so that we can expand this conversation. This great conversation that's been going on for 5 years and will continue as long as there are culturally relevant topics to discuss, or the Lord tells me to stop. Those are the 2 reasons. And either one is valid. So thank you for tuning in. I want to, as I begin season 6 of this podcast, I really feel strongly in my spirit that there is a shift that's taking place, and maybe even what we've been calling for over the last 5 years in the realm of culture. I really want to circle back to the word culture as we lean into this new season, because it is the focus of what we're doing here at Pushback. The tagline is, if you're concerned about the direction our culture is heading, then maybe it's time to push back. And the reason is simple. We're not helpless victims of the culture. You've heard me say it so many times over the last 5 years. We actually set the culture. We shape the culture. Strong, healthy Christian families are the substrate that the Father uses to reproduce his culture over the face of the earth. And I don't know if you sense it or you feel it, or if you've been looking at the headlines like I have. And I don't believe with all my heart that politicians are the answer to our culture. They're a piece of it, and they're not an insignificant piece. But they sometimes, politicians and elections, show the pulse of our culture. It exposes a little bit of what's going on in our culture. And I believe that has been the case in this last election. I believe there's some things that have shifted in regards to cultural health. Now, because there is a rejection or a fatigue that may have set in regards to some of the woke, DEI, progressive liberal ideology, doesn't necessarily make it right or wrong. There can be public opinions both ways, and sometimes things can wax and they can wane. But really what I want to get to in this podcast is what is the best? What is the healthiest? What is good for us? What is good for our children? What protects our children? What makes us live a life worth living? What makes us give a life with destiny and purpose? What gets us out of our bed in the morning to do the things that the Lord has called us to do? That's called culture. So let me remind you of the definition, and I'll maybe share this a little bit next week too. Culture is the sum total ways of living passed down from generation to generation. It's a powerful definition, and one that I am laser focused to bring to you, to submit to you, to compel you, because it's all about culture. And we are the ones as his ambassadors, as families, as the one called to carry culture here on this earth. We are the ones that actually bring impact here on this earth. The sum total ways of living passed down from generation to generation. So when we talk about culture, when we talk about family, I've said before, as family goes, so goes the culture. Well, then you can plug in the definition of culture. As family goes, so goes the sum total ways of living passed down from generation to generation. It's a big deal. And when you think about sum total ways, you think about all the little things that we do, all the thousands of decisions that we make every single day to influence lives, others' lives, our lives. It's the sum total ways. It's a package deal, all added up. The ways that we treat each other, the way we speak to each other, the way we handle work, the way we handle finances, the way that we go to church, the way that we love one another. All of these things add up, and it's a sum total way. The way that we speak, the way that we're kind to each other. These are all aspects of culture. And when we look at that from that standpoint, we realize that there are a lot of small, everyday decisions that actually create our life, our world around us. The Bible says the way that we live, move, and have our being. That's a cultural expression of who we are and how we interchange with others here on this earth. And so I believe that we can dissect our lives, that we can look even under a microscope, the small little ways that we treat each other. So much of church is a pastor dissecting the Bible and explaining to us all the different definitions and ways that we are to live. Now, where have we heard that word before? It's in the definition of the word culture. The sum total ways of living passed down from generation to generation. And I believe the Bible teaches us his ways. And so I believe when we look from 10,000 feet at our culture today and what is happening, I believe there are a few things that I believe are shifting. And that gives us, hopefully, some encouragement about what is happening and how we can impact this world. I really believe that. And it has to do with his ways. I believe we have a leg up. We are connected to the heart of a Father who loves us and cares for us and puts boundaries around us, not to restrict us or to make us feel like we're imprisoned, but actually inside the boundaries that he lays for us is complete freedom. And that we can move and live and have our being in that place where there's productivity and there's life. And here's the crazy part. I believe what's shifting in our culture a little is this demonstration of what the world has been offering us hasn't been working. We can look at all of the ways that the world is proposing that we live and all those things that I mentioned, the indoctrination of our children into this woke ideology. And we can look at those ways and say, is that bearing fruit? Has that been a positive? Is that bringing us closer together? Is that decreasing racism? Is that allowing people to get ahead? Is it doing anything that it's promised that it would do? And the answer, of course, is no. Because the worldly ways does not satisfy. It does not bring completion to our lives. It doesn't bring health and wholeness. And I would submit to you that if you go through the Bible and pull out the ways of God, can you name me one that isn't profitable or fruitful or beneficial? His ways are always good. His ways are always loving and sweet and kind towards us. His ways bring us and propel us into our destiny. And that's what everybody wants. And so I believe that we have a real opportunity today. I've been just, going through some headlines. And I just want to share these with you. I named this podcast Culture Club because it's in a reference. Hopefully, if you're older like me, you may have heard the term Culture Club. It's an old rock band with Boy George. It was not one that I would emulate or recommend that you look up. But that's not what I'm talking about. I believe that culture has been indoctrinated on us, have been forced on us, like getting hit over the head with the club. It's been a way of doing culture. Like, this is the way that we see our culture. Fall in line. You need to adapt. You need to change your policies. And we've seen it enter into every aspect of our society. into businesses, even into the medical field that we've seen, certainly even into churches, if I can be so bold, into our lives, and definitely into our schools in a major way. And it's been a culture club. Like, this is going to be culture, and I will beat you into submission until you relent and you go along with culture. And the whole purpose of this podcast is to push back and say, no, we're not going to relent. This isn't the best for us or for our children. And I believe that culture has responded. This election is just one small way, but it's a start. And now there's this potential space, which I believe is an incredible opportunity for us to enter in, because it's a potential space, meaning it's not always filled. The world is still looking for something to fill that void. And if we don't offer it to them, if we don't show them that the ways of God are the better ways, that his ways are higher than our ways, are superior to our ways, are more beneficial than our ways. If we can not, if we need to demonstrate that to them to fill that void, fill that potential space. I just found a couple headlines which I thought was interesting, and this is just over the last week. One is entitled "The Democrats' Culture Denialism." Anytime I see the word culture, I tend to click on it because I'm interested in people that are able to respond and react to culture and see the bigger picture of what's happening. And it's written by Roy Teixeira, January 2nd, 2025. And he's just talking about the fact that Democrats are engaging in culture denialism, saying that there really isn't much to discuss and that there isn't real cultural issues. Or they just try to change the subject away from the cultural issues that we care about. Or what he calls the dead ender position, that says that cultural issues have no real independent life or policy significance of their own, but are simply re-expressions of underlying racism or other side issues. See, we can't engage in cultural denialism on the right either. And so we may say, well, maybe that's a victory that Trump got elected and now there's going to be more of a conservative ideology. Maybe it's a victory that Trudeau is stepping down as Prime Minister of Canada, who's been an incredible liberal voice. Maybe these are victories that we see that are shifting, and that people are calling his conservative replacement, who's running for the possible conservative, I believe is up by like 20 points. Things are shifting in the culture that is rejecting what the world has offered because it hasn't bore any fruit. There's no life to it. It's caused more division. It hasn't done what it's promised to do. But that's not enough. That's not good enough. And that's why I'm sitting here in season number 6 with this podcast, because I believe we have to run with the truth and the life. And if we cannot articulate it, if we can't demonstrate it, if we can't show it in our own lives, then the thing that the people actually want will fall flat. And that potential space will simply be filled by something else. There's another article entitled, "Will 2025 be the end of the left-wing climate cult?" Very interesting. This article is simply about the climate change evangelists are starting to fall away. And the things that they have prophesied over these last 30, 40, 50 years simply are not coming to pass. And they've been trying to get a power grab on the power grid and our cars and our homes and our stoves and the decisions that we make. And they're hitting us over our head with a culture club. And I believe it's time that we exit the culture club and that we become no longer a member. See, he makes the case, written by Aaron Flanagan, that was just posted on Monday. He says, the conservatives have concern for the environment. It's rooted in beauty, nature, stewardship, and preservation. Whereas left-wing environmentalism is marked by poverty, wind turbines, unaffordable EVs, and gas stove bans. So why is that? It's because it's a culture club. It's not enough to just say, hey, there's a problem. You need to be, and you need to fall in line with our cultural reality of what climate change looks like. And we see it so often in the power grab of politics, how it's not enough to have an ideology, it needs to be forced onto the people. And the Green New Deal was one of the greatest, most expensive economic disasters that have ever been imposed on the American people. And I believe the American people said enough is enough. And we saw it with government-mandated vaccines and promises and hyperinflation and injection of money from the government that simply didn't provide what it said it was going to provide. And I believe that things shifted. And I think things have shifted. And that's what I'm excited about. Here's another headline: how transgenderism in sports shifted the 2024 election and ignited a national counterculture. Interesting word, isn't it? What's the counterculture? The counterculture are parents who are increasingly concerned about the safety of their women, their daughters in sports, the safety of their daughters in locker rooms, and the integrity of women's sports entirely. And instead they were hit over the head with a culture club, saying you need to fall in line and you need to allow transgender athletes into your sports and into your locker rooms and into your bathrooms. Bam, bam, bam. And they hit us over the head. And an election is just one way of saying enough is enough. This isn't right. This doesn't feel right. In this article by Jackson Thompson from Fox News, he cites a national exit poll conducted by Concerned Women for America, found that 70% of moderate voters saw the issue of Donald Trump's opposition to transgender boys and men playing girls and women's sports, and of transgender boys and men using girls and women's bathrooms as important to them. 6% said it was the most important issue of all, and 44% said it was, quote, very important, end quote. In the background, a brewing cultural movement stirred in nearly every corner of the country, focusing on this singular issue. It was fueled by women's rights groups and young female athletes who felt as though they were being dismissed by an unfair system, a system most common in blue states. Marcy Smith told Fox News Digital, "This shouldn't be a partisan issue. It's a matter of truth, biology, and justice. Elected officials who abandon their responsibility to defend women and girls in athletics will face political consequences, as evidenced by last month's election." I'm telling you, folks, these articles are interesting. It's not what we were reading 2 years ago, 3 years ago, when I was in the middle of my 5 years of podcasting. I wasn't reading headlines like that. Something has shifted. And it's the sum total ways. These are just 3 examples that add up to a sum total way of living. And people are looking at this woke ideology and saying, it doesn't add up for me. This is not the way I want to live. This is not the way I want my children to live. This is not the way I want to expose my children to. An election is just one way to voice that opinion. It's a powerful way. We've said this so many times on the podcast, the power of your vote. But it's not just about politics, and it's no surprise to any of us who are Christians that these ways of living that the world is offering is going to fall short. And there isn't going to be improvement. There's going to be devaluing of life, of liberty, of the pursuit of happiness, of the things that we care for, devaluing of family and the powerful nature of what family brings. That's no surprise to us. But here's the call, and here's what motivates me to continue with this podcast each and every week, is that we have to fill the void with the prominence and the superiority and the beauty of the Word of God and of His gospel, the good news that His gospel brings. And we need to not only engage from a Christian church, Bible study, pray around the table standpoint. We need to engage from a cultural, by the water cooler, by the copy machine, at break time, sitting next to our coworkers, the people that we meet at the grocery store. It's the everyday integrated lifestyle that we live as Christians, where we bring salt and light to the world. We are the ones that actually have to not only display his goodness and culture on the face of the earth, but be able to reiterate it, be able to speak about it, be able to be experts on all of these issues, the sum total ways. It's a lot of different things. And that's my call. That's my goal for 2025 as we move forward into season 6, is to address these things that actually add up to his ways of living and make a case for it and give you the verbiage and the vocabulary to make a case for it, because there is a potential space. What the world is offering isn't working. There's an opportunity for us right in front of us, and we can't miss it. This is our chance. Things are shifting in our culture, and we can show a better way. And I do not believe that we should do that by using a club and saying, this is the way, join our club. Join our culture club, and hit you over the head and say, this is the what you have to do. You have to fall in line. No, I believe we demonstrate his perfect and good ways here on this earth, and people will be compelled towards it. There will be a magnetic pull, a draw towards it, because that's what people are hungry for. And that's what they want so desperately. So desperately. I have so much more to say about culture itself, and I believe next podcast I'm going to really dive into this idea of culture and how we impact culture, how the way that we speak about culture. It's such an important and powerful word. I sort of introduced it in this podcast, but I would like to dive a little bit deeper next week. But be encouraged, my friends, the things that we've been calling for. If you've listened to this podcast, and there's been times that probably has brought you to tears, times that you've shaken your fists, times that you've applauded, all the different emotions that go along with caring about something. I believe that things are shifting, but this is just a shift. This is just a slight movement in culture, but it has budged. It has budged. We don't just bob down the river. We can plant our feet, and we can push back, and we can change the trajectory of our culture. I believe that, and we can do that in one generation, one lifetime, one awakening, one revival of his goodness demonstrated here on this earth, and everything shifts. I believe that with my whole heart, and that is why I'm doing this. So the purpose of this first podcast is to make a commitment to you. I'm all in. I'm all in this year. I'm all in for the things that the Lord is calling us to, and I'm going to connect with his ways. And I want to give you the sum total ways. It might be 52 things once a week that all add up to a strong, healthy culture here on this earth, because I'm so passionate about that. And I also want you at the end of this year to be able to talk about it, to be able to regurgitate it, be able to implement it in conversation to others in a place of honor and respect, but also with authority and understanding in an educated way. I believe that can happen. I believe it's super, super important. I believe that we're actually called to it. Would you go to pushbackculture.org and leave a comment or a question or any topic that you would want to hear me talk about here in season 6? I would love to hear from you and do research for you and check out some of these things that are happening in this culture. Would you also go to gofam.org and check out the resources that my wife and I carry in our family in GoFam Ministries as we travel the world, speaking and sharing on family and marriage and parenting. It's certainly our privilege. Great resources there, and we're continuing to write and add resources all the time. And you can find us on Instagram and on Facebook. You can connect with what we're doing through GoFam Ministries and this Pushback podcast. There's more exciting things to come, and I will continue to share those throughout the year. Thank you for connecting. Please spread the word in this new year so that we can go together now to set and shape the culture.